Music industry titan JayZ says that if someone's going to bring heinous allegations against him, they better have the proof to back it up. And his legal team put the court on notice that they are demanding a hearing. They say apparent inconsistencies in a woman's story after she accused the music mogul of raping her when she was a teen.
There was always a moment people ignored. Not because it wasn't visible, but because it didn't fit the story they were comfortable telling. Two towering figures moving through the same rooms, the same eras, the same power circles.
Out swinging in response to the superstar being named alongside Sean Diddy Combs in this rape lawsuit, something that we've talked about here on Sidebar. This anonymous accuser who says the two men raped her at a VMA's after party in 2000, the Video Music Awards. And this woman claims that she was raped when she was 13 years old. The original lawsuit was filed in October and it named only Sean Combs, and it identified his alleged accomplice as Celebrity A. But then a recently amended complaint was filed that says that Celebrity A is actually JayZ, real name Sean Carter, one of the richest people and maybe well-known people in the entertainment industry. Also, this amended complaint still lists a second alleged unidentified participant here, a female who's accused of watching this rape, only identified as Celebrity B. A lot of speculation about who this person could be if this story is in fact true, but Celebrity B, according to this Jane Doe accuser, was in that room when this alleged assault took place. Now, as soon as this news broke, JayZ, through his record label Roc Nation, put out a statement categorically denying that he ever did anything like this. And it became clear that he knew this lawsuit was coming out, that he knew he was about to be named because of seemingly, if you hear the parties, a breakdown in, I don't know if it's really negotiations, I'll get to that in a minute, but he knew this was coming out, put out a statement, and he even called out Tony Busby, the Texas attorney behind this lawsuit, who's already filed multiple lawsuits against Sean Combs. And JayZ claims that Tony Busby tried to blackmail him, allegedly saying, hey, JayZ, if you don't pay up, you're going to suffer the consequences on a very public stage because you will be revealed as an alleged child rapist. Now, part of the statement through Roc Nation, or through JayZ, said, quote, I have no idea how you have come to be such a deplorable human being, Mr. Busby, but I promise you, I have seen your kind many times over. I'm more than prepared to deal with your type. You claim to be a Marine? Marines are known for their valor. You have neither honor nor dignity. So certainly not a tepid response from JayZ, to say the least. And by the way, per the New York Times, we also found out that JayZ reportedly was that unnamed celebrity, John Doe, who sued Tony Busby for extortion and intentional infliction of emotional distress before JayZ was officially named in this amended complaint. And he basically outlined what he's accusing Busby of now, that he felt like he was being extorted, either pay up or be exposed. And we didn't know who John Doe was at the time, and now it seems like it's JayZ. But what is happening right now? This is what we want to talk about. Here's the big thing. So, there are apparently some reported inconsistencies coming to light in regard to Jane Doe's memories of what she says happened that night, the night that she says JayZ and Sean Combs attacked her. And JayZ's legal team has pounced on that. They are trying to get this case completely thrown out. So first, quick reminder of what Jane Doe says allegedly happened to her back in 2000. So she claims, even though she was just 13 years old, she claims she got dropped off at Radio City Music Hall in New York City, where the VMAs, the Video Music Awards, were being held. Now, she says she didn't have a ticket, so she wandered around outside, maybe hoping to see a celebrity or two. But who did she see? Instead, she sees one of Combs' bodyguards, who allegedly told her to come back later that night, and then he would take her to a home where Combs was throwing a VMA.
Never clashing, never fully aligning, just coexisting. And in industries built on ego, coincidence rarely survives scrutiny. This isn't about friendship. It never was. It's about proximity, timing, silence. The kind of silence that doesn't come from absence, but from understanding. For decades, people watched the surface, deals announced, photos taken, appearances made. They assumed what they were seeing was everything, but the surface was never the point. The real activity happened where cameras weren't invited and explanations weren't required. Power doesn't announce itself, it signals. And when new details started surfacing, what shocked people wasn't their existence, it was how long they'd been there without being questioned. Patterns hiding in plain sight tend to look harmless until someone connects them. The same events, the same private gatherings, the same inner circles, the same moments where one rose while the other stayed untouched. That's not rivalry, that's coordination without collaboration, a mutual understanding that stepping on certain lines wasn't necessary. Because real power doesn't need conflict to assert dominance. It needs.
The complaint says Combs entered the room along with defendant Carter and a female celebrity, Celebrity B. Plaintiff immediately recognized all three celebrities. Combs aggressively approached plaintiff with a crazed look in his eyes, grabbed her and said, "You are ready to party." Combs then threw plaintiff toward a wall, causing plaintiff to fall. Plaintiff got up and stumbled, at which point Combs grabbed her again and threw her on the bed. At that point, Carter began removing plaintiff's clothes as she grew more and more disoriented. And from there, Jane Doe claims that both JayZ and Sean Combs raped her before she was finally able to get away. Again, both men have adamantly denied that this happened. Let's talk about what happened last weekend. This was major. Jane Doe apparently spoke with NBC News in an interview that aired last Friday night. And she acknowledged that her story does have some inconsistencies. So Jane Doe was quoted as saying, "I have made some mistakes." She said, though, she stands by her allegations overall, but says since this happened 24 years ago, some details may have been lost to time. But what exactly are those apparent inconsistencies? Well, Jane Doe said that after the alleged rapes, she was able to run away from the home and found a gas station where she was allowed to use the phone, and she said she called her dad to come pick her up. The problem with that is her father told NBC News he didn't remember that, and that if he had come to pick her up, it would have been a 5-hour drive. On top of that, he told NBC News that he never even heard of this alleged attack on his daughter until the reporters came asking questions. Also, Jane Doe claimed that she had spoke to or saw Benji Madden at this VMA's after party. He, of course, is the lead guitarist for the rock band Good Charlotte. But his representatives told NBC News that he was in the Midwest on tour at that time. So with that now coming out, Alex Spiro, this is Jay-Z's high-powered attorney, sent a letter to the judge calling the allegations a sham. Quote, she claims the assault took place at an after-party at Mr. Combs' home, but photos that night show Mr. Combs and Mr. Carter at Lotus nightclub for the after-party. When pressed, the plaintiff admitted she was guessing about key details, including the time it took to reach the venue. She admits she has no single corroborating witness over the last 24 years. Now, that's a very good argument. I guess the other argument could be maybe they went to Lotus, but maybe they also went to this other after-party as well. Just put that to the side. Now, NBC News did report that they tried to locate a friend who allegedly drove Jane Doe to the VMAs that night, but it appears that person has since died, and they indicated that they tried to reach out to this person's relatives, but no luck. JayZ reportedly told it.
And there could be a mix of the three. The second possibility that occurred to me is, for some reason, the people who brought the motion, and that's the Quinn Emanuel firm, no longer think the motion is that strong. It's possible they've evaluated things. It's possible, they were claiming that the plaintiffs didn't vet the claims enough and made representations in the complaint that could not have been true. And maybe with further analysis, they've come to a view that the allegations in the complaint are not so demonstrably false that you could prevail on a motion for sanctions. Remember, a motion for sanctions is really hard to win on. I mean, they're very infrequently granted, especially in a contentious case like this. So I wouldn't have expected it to be granted anyway. So the second
stability. And stability comes from unspoken agreements. What people are only now realizing is that their connection wasn't built on public loyalty or shared branding. It was built on parallel ascension, two empires rising in different lanes but feeding the same ecosystem. One handled visibility, the other mastered distance. That's why there were never public wars, no explosive interviews, no diss records that crossed a certain threshold, just enough tension to keep audiences entertained, never enough to threaten structure. The illusion of separation is one of the most effective shields there is. Behind the scenes, influence moves differently. Introductions matter more than endorsements. Access matters more than applause. Being in the room beats owning the room. And both always had access. Because when attention turned toxic, It always landed on one side harder than the other. The imbalance wasn't accidental, it was managed. Pressure was absorbed where it could be survived and deflected where it couldn't. That's not loyalty, that's strategy.
NBC. This incident didn't happen, and yet he filed it in court, meaning Tony Buzbee filed it in court and doubled down in the press. And he added, "True justice is coming. We fight from victory, not for victory. This was over before it began. This 1-800 lawyer doesn't realize it yet, but soon." So what did Tony Buzbee say in response to all of this? Well, he released a statement defending himself, saying, look, Jane Doe's case was referred to me by another firm where her story had allegedly already been vetted. He wrote, "Our client remains fiercely adamant that what she has stated is true to the best of her memory. We will continue to vet her claims and collect corroborating data to the extent it exists. Because we've interrogated her intensely, she has even agreed to submit to a polygraph. I've never had a client suggest that before." It's an interesting response. It's almost, in a way, in my opinion, couching a little bit her allegations. And there seems to be, just in my opinion, maybe a little bit of doubt there. So couching where this could go. But for her part, as I said, she's defending herself. This unnamed Jane Doe said to NBC, quote, "You should always fight for what happened to you. You should always advocate for yourself and be a voice for yourself. You should never let what somebody else did ruin or run your life. I just hope I can give others the strength to come forward like I came forward." Now, quick sidebar here on this. Two things. One, she is coming forward with a massive lawsuit against two major celebrities. One argument is, would you really do that unless you really thought this happened or really have the evidence to prove this happened? And by the way, that would be really true if she ends up having to identify herself in court, since a lot of the accusers in the civil suits against Sean Combs, they've actually had to identify themselves per the court orders. So it'll be interesting if she has to identify herself and still moves forward with this lawsuit. That might help her credibility. On the other hand, of course it is clear. Look what just happened in the Duke lacrosse case, as we've been talking about. But it could be the case that somebody comes out of the woodwork and files false allegations against celebrities. It's happened before, it's happened in the past. So two competing narratives. Now, I want to go back to this because attorney Alex Spiro, JayZ's attorney, has filed an emergency motion, basically asking the court to issue an order demanding that Jane Doe and Tony Buzbee show cause or explain or provide a reason for why this case shouldn't be thrown out or why JayZ shouldn't be dismissed from the lawsuit completely, and for why evidence, at the very least, why evidence shouldn't be preserved in this case. And a memorandum in support of the filing, gives us more detail about what investigators and reporters were able to find out more than 20 years after the alleged assaults happened and how it seemingly or allegedly contradicts with Jane Doe's lawsuit. So this memorandum reads, "Plaintiff's unsupported allegations crumble under scrutiny as the evidence and lack thereof reveals glaring inconsistencies and outright impossibilities in her story. Her account describes a jumbotron at the scene of the Video Music Awards, but according to NYPD sources and MTV producers, no such jumbotron existed. MTV applied for a permit to install one, but was denied. She references a house that supposedly fits the description of the location of the alleged assault, but no such house exists." And Spiro also contends that if Buzbee were comfortable putting his name on a story that had such gaping holes in it, then he wouldn't be surprised if Buzbee started destroying evidence. That's a big allegation. But the filing reads, "The fundamental inconsistencies in plaintiff's case revealed in the NBC interview, coupled with Buzbee's..."
As new details surface, what shocks people isn't the existence of overlap. It's the scale of it, the repetition, the consistency. Too many shared intersections to be coincidence. Too many moments where outcomes aligned without explanation. Power recognizes power, and when it doesn't always clash. Sometimes it simply agrees not to interfere. That agreement doesn't need words. It lives in behavior, in who speaks and who stays quiet, in who gets questioned and who gets shielded by complexity and distance. Distance is one of the strongest forms of protection. One stayed close to chaos, absorbing attention like a lightning rod. The other stayed just far enough away to remain clean while still benefiting from the energy. That balance kept both alive far longer than most of their peers. And when cracks began to show, the response wasn't panic, it was patience. Because patience is what you have when you know more than everyone else in the room. The industry
And maybe with further analysis, they've come to a view that the allegations in the complaint are not so demonstrably false that you could prevail on a motion for sanctions. Remember, a motion for sanctions is really hard to win on. I mean, they're very infrequently granted, especially in a contentious case like this. So I wouldn't have expected it to be granted anyway. So the second possibility is that Quinn Emanuel just decided it's not the best motion. It's not our best. We have a separate motion to dismiss the complaint against our client. That's the motion that we want to see through. That's the motion we want the judge to focus on. We want her to focus on the merits and dismiss the claims against our client. We don't care about this sanction stuff. We're going to get it go. And my third theory, which I have no basis for other than sheer speculation, I want to say that up front, is that there's some kind of deal here between the lawyers. The lawyers have accused each other, right? Busby's accused Quinn Emanuel of going after his clients and trying to get them to bring malpractice cases. Quinn Emanuel's gone after Busby and accused him of trying to drum up clients to bring claims against Combs and against JayZ. And maybe the attorneys have reached some sort of understanding about the ground rules. Maybe not, but maybe they have, and letting this motion go is part of that understanding. That would be my third possible reason.
Yeah, and I know you mentioned that it's speculation, but I think by you kind of explaining that, I feel like that might also be very plausible. I want to go back to what you said during kind of your second explanation, where, I'm sure JayZ from his side, he probably wants this lawsuit just to be, or this complaint to be dismissed, or not even amended in the first place, made in the first place. Obviously, nothing goes away in the blink of an eye, excuse me. But in your opinion, watching all of this legal back and forth that's been unfolding these past few months, do you think there is enough to dismiss, or do you think at a point this will even get litigated?
I think it's going to get litigated. If I had to guess, I haven't really studied the complaint against the motion to dismiss, so I don't have a advanced opinion about it. But my reaction to it is that the complaint accuses him of some very bad stuff, and that ought to be enough to move the case forward. That's my guess. Now, remember, at the outset of these litigations, we go through kind of a honing phase where the dispute is sort of narrowed down to certain parties and certain claims. And sometimes the motion to dismiss doesn't get rid of the case entirely, but it gets rid of some of the claims or it gets rid of some of the parties. I see today, by way of example, there's a brand new filing dismissing defendant Bad Boy Records LLC. There were separate claims against that company, and I don't know where all these companies fit in the pantheon of Bad Boy Records, but that company has been dismissed voluntarily from the action. And you'll see that kind of thing at the beginning of civil litigation. The parties and the claims have to be sorted out, and then the case can proceed with discovery.
And we do want to mention to our viewers there that even though Bad Boy Records was dismissed off that complaint, Sean Carter and Sean Combs are both still named there. I also
loves to sell rivalry. Conflict keeps people watching, but behind that performance, stability is the real prize, and stability requires understanding who not to cross. This connection wasn't about friendship, it was about boundaries. Invisible lines neither side dared to cross because crossing them would collapse more than reputations. It would expose the system itself. That's why so much remained unsaid. The public was busy arguing about surface-level drama while deeper arrangements stayed intact. People debated personalities while structures stayed untouched. And now, as fragments start slipping through the cracks, the reaction isn't explosive. It's uneasy, because what's being revealed isn't scandal, it's architecture. An architecture built on silence, timing, and mutual awareness. Once you understand that, the past rearranges itself. Old moments gain new weight. Old decisions make sense. Old silences stop feeling empty. They were full the entire time. full of calculation, full of restraint, full of understanding. This isn't a story about secrets.
I want to talk to you, Rich, about a point that JayZ's lawyer made previously, and that was that Tony Busby never even met with this Jane Doe, despite saying in that press conference back in October that his firm vetted all of the claims. What are your thoughts on that, given that Busby is standing behind Jane Doe and the allegations that she made?
Yeah, well, so Busby, or certainly somebody from Busby's office, should be meeting with these plaintiffs before bringing claims. I mean, you should always meet with your client before you go charging into court with a claim, but all the more so when they're salacious, provocative, inflammatory claims like the ones in this case. You do have an obligation to make sure there's a good faith basis for proceeding with the claims. You have to make sure there aren't any red flags that would indicate the claim is false or being concocted, just to extort the parties. You have to do some due diligence. And Busby runs a big firm, and he says he has 120 or so, that was the last number I heard, clients who are potentially bringing claims here. So I'm not saying he had to meet personally with her, but certainly somebody at his firm should have, and I don't know if that happened or not. But if they didn't, I would think they had a little explaining to do.
And do you think it was overly ambitious for him to tout that he was filing 120 lawsuits against Diddy with these big names attached, when really that number was lesser than that? And the only big name that he had added to these various complaints was Sean Carter, aka JayZ.
Yeah, well, remember what he was doing there, because that press conference and those announcements, those are not part of any court case that goes forward. No jury will ever hear about that. He was trying to generate clients and evidence. So he went public and said, I'm the guy. If you now, having heard what the world has heard about Sean Combs, if you now have a claim against him that you want to pursue, I'm the best position to do it, because I'm doing the work. I have all these clients. So if you have a claim, or if you have evidence, or somebody else who is at those parties that there should be claims against, come to my firm and talk to me. That was just a long-winded attorney advertisement. And I think that's one of the issues the defense lawyers have with him, is that he's sort of been doing, self-promotion and attorney advertising in the midst of litigating the case. And sometimes it's hard to distinguish between the two. So I don't know how many clients he actually has. You are correct. The number of lawsuits is well under 120. There's also a possibility that some of those clients have reached settlements already that are just confidential and we don't know about. Again, I have no idea if that's true, but that could be one explanation as to why there are 120 clients and less than 20 lawsuits.
Yeah, because I even think JayZ was kind of making that point when he issued that scathing statement, kind of saying that, alleging that Tony Busby just wanted money out of him to make this all go away. He obviously didn't pay it, said he wouldn't pay it, and then that's kind of how we ended up here a little bit. My final question to you, Rich, is, going back to Alex Spiro asking the judge to dismiss the motion for sanctions against Tony Busby, which the judge did grant, where does Diddy fit into all of this? His trial is nearing. It's in a couple months. If this particular suit or complaint, I should say, continues to go forward during his trial, does that
being shared? It's about secrets being respected, about knowing what not to say and when not to move. That's where the unexpected details start to matter. The repeated overlap in moments that shaped the industry, the way doors opened without explanation, the way certain controversies stopped before reaching critical mass. People call it luck, people call it intelligence, but luck doesn't repeat itself this consistently without help. There's a reason certain narratives never gained traction, a reason some stories died before they could grow teeth, a reason uncomfortable questions were quietly redirected elsewhere. Protection doesn't always look like defense, sometimes it looks like distraction. What's disturbing to many now is realizing how much influence operates through absence, through not speaking, through letting others burn while you remain untouched. That's not passive, that's strategic. And the deeper you look, the clearer it becomes that their connection wasn't about trust, it was about mutual benefit, about understanding the terrain well enough to never threaten the balance. One built an image rooted in excess, visibility.
Recognized all three celebrities. Combs aggressively approached plaintiff with a crazed look in his eyes, grabbed her, and said, "You are ready to party." Combs then threw plaintiff toward a wall, causing plaintiff to fall. Plaintiff got up and stumbled, at which point Combs grabbed her again and threw her on the bed. At that point, Carter began removing plaintiff's clothes as she grew more and more disoriented. Plaintiff was held down by Carter as he vaginally raped her, while Combs and Celebrity B watched. After Carter finished, he stepped back toward the wall. Combs then stepped forward and vaginally raped plaintiff while Carter and Celebrity B watched. Combs then knocked plaintiff down and attempted to force plaintiff to perform oral sex on him. She fought back, standing up quickly and punching out at the same time, hitting Combs in the neck. Taken aback, Combs stopped his attempt. Now, JayZ has vehemently denied these allegations, and since the suit was filed, there have been inconsistencies that have emerged in the woman's story, including the fact that she claimed her dad picked her up that night, but he told NBC News he doesn't remember doing that and it would have taken him hours to drive to pick her up. And the woman claims she talked to Benji Madden at the party, but he was on tour in the Midwest at the time. Well, an old friend of Jay-Z's, who has a complicated past with him, is now coming to his defense. Rapper Beanie Sigel says the woman should have to reveal her name. Right now, a judge is allowing her to remain anonymous. Sigel and JayZ were both artists on Rockefeller Records back in the early aughts. JayZ was a partial owner of that label. The two had a falling out. Then Sigel recorded a diss track about JayZ in 2009, but the two have since smoothed things over. Now Sigel has spoken out about the lawsuit where JayZ is being sued along with Sean Combs by that woman identified right now only as Jane Doe. She claims JayZ and Sean Combs raped her at that VMA party back in 2000. Well, Sigel talked about the claim on the Art of Dialogue YouTube channel recently.
You got people like me that don't believe it. You got other people that believe anything. You got some people that want it to be true. Me, I don't know. Yeah, that's I gotta say it like I don't want that shit to be true. I don't believe that shit. I can't believe that.
Sigel also says he believes the Jane Doe should have to reveal her name.
Who is this? Who is she? Who is she?
She don't have to reveal her identity.
All right then. There you go right there. How? Listen, let me explain something to you. When I was going to court in the feds, right? Yeah, man, and I'm quite sure Jay feeling this way too. And people should understand that and look at it. We have the right to face our accuser. When I was going to court, it said Dwight Grant versus the United States. When I was in the courtroom, I looked around and I ain't see the United States. I don't think the United States of America could have fit in that courtroom. The earth is spacious. Everybody voicing opinion and talking about this shit. Jay got the right to face his accuser. Where is this little bit? 13-year-old, what was she? What a 13-year-old doing?
Dominance. The other built an image rooted in precision, restraint, control, different masks, same destination. And when cracks began forming in one structure, the other didn't rush in publicly. Distance was maintained, statements were minimal, silence stayed intact. That silence is what people are finally interrogating. Because silence isn't neutral when power is involved, it's a choice. New details didn't reveal a hidden friendship, they revealed a shared philosophy, one that values longevity over loyalty, survival over sentiment. In that world, secrets aren't traded like gossip, they're stored like insurance. You don't cash them in unless you have to, and if you never have to, they remain locked away, shaping behavior without ever being exposed. That's how empires last. The public wants villains and heroes, reality prefers architects. What unsettles people now is understanding that many of the industry's biggest moments weren't chaotic at all, they were managed, curated, allowed to happen within safe boundaries. Chaos was the product. Control was the process. And the connection sits right there, in the middle of it all, not loud, Not flashy, just present, watching, waiting, benefiting. This isn't about guilt or innocence. It's about systems, about how influence consolidates and protects itself, about how two figures can appear separate while reinforcing the same foundation. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. The interviews hit different. The old footage feels heavier. The pauses feel intentional. And suddenly, what looked like coincidence starts resembling choreography. People expected betrayal. What they got was something colder, mutual awareness without obligation, the understanding that some bridges don't need to be crossed to be useful. That's why this revelation feels unsettling. It challenges the idea that power always fights power. Sometimes it simply recognizes itself and moves accordingly. And when new details surface, they don't explode, they ripple, quietly, persistently, forcing people to question how much of what they believed was real and how much was performance. Because the most shocking secret isn't that a connection existed. It's that it never needed to be spoken out loud. And that silence shaped everything.